And now we're going to have Deborah. So Deborah is a lady in her, I hope I can say this, Deborah, in her 60s. She's really lovely person. She lives in Florida. I believe she has 3 daughters, but her medical history started when she was young. And I don't want to, of course, steal her thunder, but I will say that she'll tell you she has narcolepsy and cataplexy. We're going to talk about what that means, sleep disorders. And one of the things she said to me that I wrote down that I was astounded by, she said, I'd never been wide awake before taking Cerule products. I'd never seen the sunrise. I mean, just think about how impactful that is on her. There's a lot more to this. So we're going to get started with Deborah's story. And then I'm going to interject here and there with Deborah and kind of talk about different things. And then I'm also going to talk about what products she used. She's going to tell you that, but how the products actually helped her. And if you look behind me here, we're going to go through the narcolepsy, cataplexy, sleep apnea, and injuries, and how the Cerule products help all those complex of issues and many others. So Deborah, why don't you start?
Okay. Well, when I was a little girl, I began to realize something was very wrong with me. I wasn't like everyone else, and I would eat and become very sleepy. And I didn't want to get in trouble because I was supposed to wash dishes, but I would hide in the bathroom. But I would fall off the commode when I'd sit there to go to sleep. So I would tie myself there so I wouldn't. I kept noticing I'm the only one doing it. When I ran, I would get out of breath, get tired, and my legs would become numb. But it would come in spells, and then sometime I'd be okay. And then as I got older, it didn't come in uniform order. It just came years apart. Then all of a sudden I started passing out. Then I realized if I laughed, my sister used to love to tickle me. And if I laughed, it was paralysis. I had no idea I was having cataplexy. And so I become completely paralyzed. And I couldn't move, couldn't speak. And I felt like I couldn't breathe. Each time that happened, I felt like I was dying. So it's very emotional, to remember it. As I began to get older, I was not able to wake up. And my mother kept saying, something is wrong with you. They used to have to wake me up with water. And I thought it was abusive, but that was the only way they could get me to get up. Then I would go to sleep in school. Now, the next thing that happened that people need to pay attention to when children are staring, daydreaming, actually, it's kind of like automatic behavior. When you appear to be awake, your brain's actually asleep. And I have sleep apnea, and the sleeping brain does not know how to breathe. So that means that there would be periods of time that I would appear to be awake, but I wasn't breathing. And then I would start the palpitations, the racing of the heart, then would slow down to a crawl, and then I would pass out. I think it's called dyspnea. Is that how you pronounce it? It would be
a breathing problem?
Yeah, well, the breathing problem, yes.
Dyspnea.
Yeah, and I would just pass out. And it didn't look real. So a lot of people used to call me an actress and told me I should, grow up and go to Hollywood because it appeared to be that I was acting, and I wasn't, because it would go away almost as suddenly as it came. But then it began emotions, emotionally charged situations, the sudden barking of a dog or a phone ringing, and I would just collapse. I didn't understand it. And that's when the injuries began. I remember standing, talking to someone, started laughing. And the next thing you know, I fell, but they told me I fell as straight as a board. So that means I came down, chin, knees, my whole body just came down. And they said, "What? We never saw anyone fall like that before." So as time went on in school, it was very challenging. And I was told I was very smart. My grades reflected that, but I was going to sleep in class and I was getting in trouble. So when I had to stand in the corner, you know what happened? I got tired and collapsed. Now, as I got older, what happened with the injuries? Running, I couldn't run, but I was a very good runner, but I would suddenly stop. Then I would fall, which resulted in, as I got older, a lot of pain and discomfort. I had no idea what was going on with me. Then one day I was hopping around, even taking stim enhance, and it was suggested that I go get x-rays. That's when I found out about the fractures. I'm walking on fractures, but I'm sleepy and I don't realize that's what it is. And it resulted in 2 knee replacements, a right hip replacement, my ankle, and a total shoulder. And I had maybe 3 concussions, not sure how many, but that's how many times I would fall. So at this point, everyone knew something was wrong. I had to do the research to get the help myself. I had to find out what cataplexy was and what caused it so I could minimize it, because I don't want to tell you how many times I would have cataplexy in a day. Now, one other thing I want to emphasize, coming in from the store, and this is, friends of mine are going to hear things they've never heard before. They don't know these things. So I'm letting you know for the first time. I would come in and unload the groceries, and I would head to the bathroom to take things in there. And I realized I had the milk, and I would put the milk under the cabinet, and I had the bleach in the refrigerator. And then I realized it. And then I would go back and go to the bathroom and forget what I went in there for. I would go take the dishwashing liquid in the, in the bathroom. And in order to remember what I had to get, I would say bubbles, 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 bubbles. And I would have to continuously say that in order to remember what to bring back. So you can see how emotional it was. Then sleep apnea. I was diagnosed probably age 40 with narcolepsy. And then about 5 years later, because of, I guess, I don't know, weight gain, a lot of things, I developed sleep apnea. And then I ended up using the machine. But then they found out it wasn't enough because I wasn't getting oxygen. And so they had to do the BiPAP. And it did so much damage to my heart. Later on, of course, we'll get into this 2 weeks later, I was diagnosed with pulmonary hypotension and also congestive heart failure. Now, those things can kill you inside of 5 or 10 years, if, well, really 5 years if you're not taking care of yourself. But what I want to say, one day I got a phone call, and a very dear person called me from Jamaica and told me, look at this, you need to look at this website. Well, at the time, it was, the AFA, the Stem Enhance, and this was back in 2006. And I didn't get the product until 2 weeks later because I wasn't interested in reading. I finally took the product when I got it. And I remember within about 20 or 30 minutes, all of a sudden, everything was brighter. I started noticing things I didn't notice. Those were the things I stumbled around because I have horrible organizational skills. And the first thing I did was, I told you, went out to the grocery store, went in and bought brownies. And I came back and I made brownies and I was feeling so good. And the next morning I got up and I couldn't wait to take the Stem Enhance because at first I was afraid. I took one, and when I didn't, I took two. And that's when I realized something was going on. I already had the injuries and I thought I was going to have to live with it. And I remember our formulator of the product told me, Deborah, don't be too proud. Go and get the x-rays. So I submitted to have the surgery, and I did do the surgery. Now, this is where the doctors noticed something. When I went into the nursing home, because of narcolepsy and sleep apnea, when they give you pain medicine, you can't get through that type of surgery without it. But I would stop breathing. So I had to go in a nursing home. So 3 days in the nursing home comes in the doctor, and he almost jumped back looking at my hip. He said, oh my God. He said, wait a minute. When did you have your surgery? I said, 3 days ago. He said, there's no way. He said, the thing is completely healed up. What on earth is going on? The incision from the hip replacement was completely closed. And then that's when he said, there's something different about her. My doctor told me, the surgeon said, cutting your flesh is like nothing I've seen before. He said, I'm beginning to believe you. And that's when I gave him the information on the Stem Enhance, and he got some Stem Enhance. When I was in the nursing home, I signed up 2 of the therapists. They were taking it. A friend of mine told me one day when I walked in his office, he's a physician, he said, what in the world are you doing? I look different. But the thing that I really want to tell people, and I'm not looking at notes, this is natural. All of a sudden, people hadn't seen me for a very long time, for years. Some people thought I was dead. And I emerged all of a sudden. And they're going, what is going on? I said, come to my house. You have to come and see this video. And this is when I was taking Stem Enhance. They came in, looked at the video. I'm telling you, Dr. Stan, I signed up so many people. They didn't care what it was. They just knew that I was awake and alert and talking to them. So my story is I'm awake, and at times I'm sleepy. Now, I'm not perfect, so let me get that out there. I'm not perfect, but I'm awake and I'm alert.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, your story is, as everybody's hearing, it's just fascinating, and there's so much to your story. You know what I mean? There's so many parts to it, and it's just because from the, it's like, well, why we, even besides you having a great story and you're a wonderful person and you're great, it's like, why talk about narcolepsy? Because it's not just about that. That's one thing, but from that stems these other problems. And that's unfortunately, you've had the falls and weight gain and just lack of concentration, all these things that come from that. And so, STEM Enhance, I was, I've been researching. I'm just going to stop you for a minute because I know you got more to say, but I want to tell the audience about narcolepsy a little bit from the medical perspective, and then we can get back to you. But narcolepsy is caused by reduction of a neurotransmitter called orexin or hypocretin. And it's only released actually from the hypothalamus, which is in the brainstem. The nerves in that area of the brain are also reduced. So there's a destruction or reduction of nerve cells. Normally these nerves and the orexin affect multiple parts of the brain. So they actually go to different parts of the brain as well to allow a wakefulness or arousal, appetite, sleep cycle, including our circadian rhythm. And Deborah mentioned to me that her ability to recover from jet lag takes a lot longer. And that, of course, would be one of the reasons that would be affected. In narcolepsy, according to some statistics, is 1 in 2,000 people, which seems actually quite high to me. But if you have it, your offspring can be up to 20 to 40 times more likely to have it. Interestingly enough, what I also found was there's an association with having had H1N1, that virus, that maybe have something to do with it. And so that may be, of course, thinking is that if there's any truth to that, I don't know all the science behind that part, but that maybe I wonder if some of the COVID patients, since obviously COVID viruses, SARS virus is very similar to H1N1, would maybe develop narcolepsy later on. So maybe there's some people that we're going to see who have some of the symptoms that could benefit from Cerule products. So, how are the products helping Deborah? Well, stem release with the STEM Enhance will repair damage to the hypothalamus where the inflammation is occurring, which reduces that orexin production. And Cyactive will reduce inflammation as well, thus also helping the brain tissue heal. She's going to talk about a little bit, maybe today or the next time, about lung issues, but obviously lung improvement, breathing improvement is going to help with stem cell and also anti-inflammatories. And why don't you tell them a little bit about if you've been, how your health was in terms of any infections or, health issues like flu. Tell us your history about that.
I've only had a flu and it developed into pneumonia once in 14 years. I started taking the product 14 years ago. I was
That's
exposed
a big
to mold.
distance right there.
Yeah, I think I may have had it twice, but I think one I was hospitalized. I was exposed to mold, but every time they took the blood test, they couldn't really find the mold. But we had tested and knew that's what it was. And the doctor came to the conclusion that I was constantly in a detox and I was constantly swollen. But thanks to Stem Enhance, I was alive. And it's probably why I was able to survive. But here's what happened. They saw the inflammation in the lung or the spot on the lung, and I went home and I couldn't breathe, still couldn't breathe. But I found my Cyactive. It was sitting outside the door. It was the first time I ever tried it, so I took it. Then I got short of breath 2 days later, went back to the hospital. The x-rays showed that the spot was gone. Then they're beginning to question whether or not I had pneumonia. I was diagnosed with pneumonia at one hospital, transferred by ambulance to another hospital. All kinds of specialists were coming in because they couldn't figure it out. They tested me for everything. When I say everything, everything. So an infectious disease specialist came in to talk to me, and they were coming in with, gowns and gloves and, looked like spacesuits. And then he did some tests. And the next day the girl said, I don't know why I have this on. She said, what on earth do they have you diagnosed with? She said, your blood, they told me, is almost excellent. All of my blood tests came back nice and clean, no more spot on the lung. So we don't want to say this was a miracle because we have to keep the call clean. But the doctor kept saying, I don't understand this. And that happened more than once. I think one time before, something was going on with me, and they were saying one day they see it, then they don't. So I sent you the proof today that this really does happen, and people don't believe it, but I decided I would go around and make sure that I get adequate proof so someone would know that, yes, Something is here once, and then when you take enough stem enhance and release stem cells, they're able to go to those challenge areas, replicate themselves, and do the needed repair. So what people need to remember, if something can get into the body, it can get out. The only thing is you have to learn how to back it out the way that it comes in. And it doesn't happen overnight because it doesn't come in overnight. So that's what I had to do. So it doesn't happen overnight. That's why we have to be persistent. And then you may have to take more than what the bottle says, which is what I did. And then after you achieve some success, then you can back down. But I don't know
So
what
how
I would
many,
do with that.
what doses did, when you were really pretty ill, what kind of doses were you on?
Well, I've taken 6 at a time when I would fall, and I would take 6 immediately. I remember I was with, I think Andy was there. I know Mark Persekian, and a lot of us were walking together on the boat. And I walked out in my stocking feet and slipped down. And I not long had a hip replacement. The first thing I did was got back to the room, and I took about 4 stem enhance, and I waited a few hours and took 4 more. And I called the doctor, and guess what they said? Do I need to get an x-ray? Normally, when you fall on your hip, you have to get an x-ray. Guess what he told me? Oh, just take the plasma flow. Just, just double up on it. He said, you'll be fine. He said, you don't feel like anything is broken. I said, no, I'm sore. He said, oh, we'll take the plasma flow. That should take care of it. So my doctors began, you know what now they say? It's on my charts, medically necessary. And that, thanks to stem enhance, I was able to keep a driver's license. Because before that, I was in automatic behavior. I would drive and then forget, where was I going? I'm just driving. I had no idea. And I would think, and it would really be something that would make anyone cry when you get that confused. Well, that was another thing that I noticed. I wasn't doing the daydreaming and forgetting
Right.
where I was going.
So when you were, and just to go back a little bit, when you were growing up, what were your, what, you know, people, how were they treating you? They thought you were, they didn't understand, obviously.
No, they were very abusive.
Yeah.
I got picked on, I got bullied. I was called, they called me crazy.
Right.
And I began to think even family members thought so. They just did not know what was wrong with me.
Right.
But I decided, and I told you, after I got to be an adult, I'm going to find out what's wrong with me because all of these doctors back and forth, in and out of hospitals, they couldn't figure it out. They just knew that one time my heart outran the machine, and the doctor took off and left and sent the nurse in. They told me I needed a different kind of doctor. And my mother said, hold on, wait a minute. We're not doing this. So I decided, find out what's wrong with you. Just investigate. And you know what? I came up with sleep disorder before they did.
You came up with what?
I came up with a sleep disorder before
Oh,
they
before
did.
they, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I
Yeah,
realized it
well,
was
I mean,
narcolepsy.
I think one of the really great things about you is that the honesty, but also your bravery and how you're just this really cool, nice person that, given the circumstances, I mean, I don't know what I would have done. I mean, I wouldn't be like you. I mean, I have to take my hat off to you. You're really an incredibly powerful person and smart, obviously very intelligent. And, I could see how doctors, I mean, especially years ago, you're telling them stuff and they're probably going to go, what the hell does she know kind of thing. Right. And,
They didn't believe it.
and you're going, I'm just telling you what's going on,
Well,
and I
they
think
thought I need a
that,
psychiatrist.
yeah, yeah.
They
Well,
did.
that's the thing. I mean, and I have to say, regarding, myself, why I actually wanted to get involved with Cerule is that, I'm a pretty healthy person and all that, but I wasn't taking something to help my immune system. I wasn't taking something to reduce inflammation or my blood flow. And we can do as much as we can in our lives and eat well and exercise and if people want to know my exercise regime, I'm happy to share it with them. Dr. Stan's exercise regime, but hearing somebody like you, also what it does, it brings, I think, things full circle. Like we're all at different places in our lives. I saw some comments come through about, does it help other parts of the body? Is it just for because it's somebody that's, I guess, new to the company or something? But yes, the answer is it does help multiple parts of the body. That's the whole point of this. And I think that you know, the more I've been reading about not just Cerule documents, but other science related to what products or ingredients are in Cerule, I'm becoming, you know, more, as you all know, more and more a believer. My own knee got better in all kinds of things. So I think that your story is just so amazing regarding that whole, and it's over decades. You know, it's not just a short little story. So, and the fact that you've been on products for all these years. So, you know, I think it's amazing. I think it also, we talked about this together on some of our calls, but I think it's also important that people do realize, and you said this too, is you have to look at your overall health as well. You can't just, you know, it's diet, it's exercise, it's, you know, doing things mentally for yourself, exercises, reading, whatever it is, as well as taking Cerule. So I think, you know, I talked about this before. So the cycle of health and Cerule cycle of health. And I think that really is a part, for me, that was missing in terms of my health. And for you, it was a much, you know, it's a really important part of your health. And I think that's why it's so, the products are so great, because they apply to pretty well everybody. And so I wanted to just say that, I mean, yeah, I mean, if I even had half of your, you know, issues, I wrote down that I'd be taking, yeah, like 8 of those as active, stem enhance at a time, stay active, and all, you know, maximizing the dose. And as you said, exactly. And Linda Huggard, who I've talked to early on, who's just an amazingly smart person as well, has been in the field, you know, said that she's got levels of sort of, you know, if you're this kind of ailment, take this much. If you, you know, kind of, it makes sense. You want to scale it up. And as you just said, you scale it to the point where then you get better, and then you can modify it according to maintain your health, right? So I think that's great. What we're looking forward to next time, everyone, is that Deborah has had a lot of tests, obviously blood tests and x-rays and all, sleep tests and all kinds of things. It goes on and on. So what we're going to do next time is tell you more of her exciting story, but also tell you objective tests that she's had to show the changes, oxygen levels, all kinds of stuff. So it's not, you know, her story is super compelling and she's obviously super credible, but more objective things. And then with those objective tests, I'm going to explain those to everybody and then talk about the Cerule products in detail as to how each one helped for each of those things. So thank you very much, Deborah, today. That was awesome. Look forward to 2 weeks from now, everybody. Hope you can be there.
Thanks for, you know, giving me the opportunity to tell my story. This is the first time I've actually shared this much. And I don't miss my products. That's what I want to tell people. Don't miss your products. They wanted me to come off the products to take a sleep study. And the reason is because now it shows when I take a sleep study that I don't have narcolepsy. But I don't have time for that. I am not going to go into cataplexy and start having narcoleptic symptoms to appease someone's curiosity.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.